You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today's episode is a very special message from me to you. So this is not our normal episode. So if you've stumbled upon Productivity Straight Talk and this is your first episode, feel free to listen, but I would encourage you to definitely take a listen back at our other more typical episodes. All right, so my message from me to you, the listeners of Productivity Straight Talk and the community. This episode is coming with such a heavy heart as I have literally contemplated this episode for so much, just incredible amounts of time over the last week and a half to 2 weeks. And I don't know any other way to show up other than to be just completely honest and, like always, just have a conversation with you. I found myself in a situation where it was certainly uncharted territories, and wow, it hit me incredibly hard with the death of George Floyd. As that was unfolding the days after his death, and I was listening and observing what was going on in our country, I immediately felt that there is nothing I can say with regards to the area that I show up in with time management and productivity and in business that would have been of value during that intense conversation that was going on and is continuing to go on. And while I was grappling with my own emotions and feelings and hurt and pain, I did not feel that this was the platform to share that. I felt as though my gut reaction was to put a hold and a pause on all content. Now, what's interesting as we all navigate to be leaders is that I wasn't confident in that decision. I wasn't confident in that decision, and that I stood up and said, hey, I'm hitting pause. And as the weekend went past and I was like, do I make one? Do I not? Do I just delay it? I just don't know what feels right, but I know that I don't feel right. And then Blackout Tuesday came, and the whole conversation of holding space for the conversation that absolutely needed to be had in this country. And I thought, oh my gosh, my gut reaction was on point. Okay. But then the other conversation happened, which was silence is the enemy. Silence is giving permission and is choosing a side that is not for and standing with the Black community. And that hurt me so badly because I didn't feel that my silence was meant in that type of way. I felt that my silence was out of respect of working through and articulating what I was feeling, and honestly not feeling as though my thoughts and emotions and rage was warranted as a white woman. And yet I had them so intensely. So I knew that the platform that I needed to show up on, which is here serving you, needed to happen after I had done my own work, because that I believe that is a very personal work that needs to be done to really lead. I also believe that the work first needs to happen in our own personal lives before we can lead by example to others. And so the last couple weeks has been filled with so many needed conversations with my husband, with my son, with my employees, my team, and honestly, with myself. I was, trying to figure out, why am I not showing up in my business and as a leader the way that I wanted to? And quite honestly, it's because I'm human, and this really, really hurt. I was trying to find the words for why this hurt so much more than getting through COVID-19 together as a community, as business owners, as Americans. And the only words I can put to it is that I felt that there was a unity. I felt like we were in this together and we would get through this together. And there was a lot of hope on the other side of that. And with the conversations and the circumstances that are going on and the things that I've been learning and hearing and listening to, it just felt to me so much anger and hurt and divide amongst beliefs and politics and race and just people. And honestly, that was what I needed to deal with, were those feelings about there not being that same unity. But that was a huge breakthrough for me, because once I realized that was the major shift in how I was experiencing this situation and COVID-19, I set out to look for the good and look for where people are united and making a positive impact and sharing their voice and allowing for healing to begin with real change. And real change brings me to the fact that who I am is someone who does not speak unless I am 100% sure of the words that I speak, meaning I always come from a place of integrity. And while many are very quick to action, when I find myself in new territory, I am not quick to action. I have become a student in the last 2 weeks, a listener, observing, and really opening my heart and mind to different perspectives and hearing what many, many people have experienced with regards to racial injustice. I have been since a child. I have so many memories of extended family and people around me, even in high school, making off-the-cuff jokes about race or things that enraged me. And this was before I had found my own voice. For those of you that haven't been around for a while, maybe you don't know, but I was kind of quiet in my younger years. And I would get enraged because it just wasn't right. And I didn't understand all the reasons it wasn't right, but it was the most pure feeling of injustice and just the sense of, who would think that way? I don't understand it. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would you not be kind and love? And somewhere along the journey, those feelings became something of, maybe that was just a naive way of looking at the world. And so I have been working through that is not a naive way of looking at the world, but in fact, a very right way of looking at the world is taking a stance for injustice and people being treated poorly because of who they are, their skin color, or our cultural differences. It's wrong. And as a white woman, I would have always described myself as someone who was not racist, but it was in the most naive way. Because over the last several weeks, I had realized there is so many layers to that. There's so many layers to just clearly not understanding the differences and the stories and experiences. And so it's with this that I'm sharing my own journey of letting you know that my silence is by far not my acceptance of how things are now, or that I do not stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. It was me going on my own journey and working through my own thoughts and emotions so that I could stand and know that I was ready for the marathon that is in front of myself. Meaning, I was not okay with making a one-off social media post or a off-the-cuff podcast episode to say that I spoke on the topic. I really, really hoped with everything that I had that this was not something that was just going to be of a highlight reel in the news media for a couple days, but really something that striked real change, and that's going to take long-term action. And when I think of long-term action in my personal life or in my business, that always comes with thought and intention and strategy. And so that's what I have taken this time to do, is have real conversations with the people closest to me in my inner circle and really kind of uncover where I was ignorant in a lot of areas, and exploring the idea of being a student of this so that I could be more educated and be a true ally in supporting those that absolutely deserve our support. So, with that being said, I want to kind of uncover some of the things that I learned as a leader, because maybe you would find that to be helpful in your own life or in your own business. As I grappled with how to show up and how to show up my best, I was teetering between what was expected and what was being called for in the media of do not be silent. I also found myself as a student consuming so much information and so much content that I realized that I was not giving space and room to finding my own thoughts, my own perspectives, my own voice. And this had happened early on in my business when I would read other time management and productivity and books and podcasts and consume that content. In those circumstances, it also happened in that it would drown out my own thoughts and my own voice, and having space for that. And so this time I was really, really quick to realizing that yes, there was a time and place to be a student and to learn, but there was also a place to pause and find my own footing and my own voice. And so that can only be done. What I believe to be done is that's the internal work that needs to be done. It's not about consuming, but at some point taking a pause and thinking about what you did consume and what are your own thoughts and how will that impact actionable changes in your life based on what you learned. The other thing that came up as I grappled with how to show up was that I literally leaned on my special advisory council. Now, I use that terminology in my business and with my clients, meaning who are the people that you surround yourself with that you can lean on when you are not sure of the next steps. And for that, I leaned on my husband, and I leaned on my own coach, and I leaned on some dear friends, and I leaned on my assistant who has been with me forever and probably is one of the people that knows me best in my world. So I would highly advise that as you're grappling with anything in a leadership capacity or in your business, to make sure that you have people that you're pouring into on a regular basis and building those relationships. So when you have to call upon them, they are there to stand with you. I also grappled and, was challenged with the idea that I am the productivity specialist and I pride myself on showing up consistently, and yet this chopped me off at my knees. It was the perfect storm in the fact that we were finishing out a huge project, which was updating our website of hundreds and hundreds of pages. And we had just barely been turning the corner on finishing that up. And I was exhausted and wanting to get that to the finish line. So like physical exhaustion, we were updating, we were on our own major sprint prior to this happening. And so when this situation had arose, I was already not in my best state because I was pouring into physically into the business, mentally into the business, relooking at everything. And so that was part of this perfect storm. The other part of that was that when COVID-19 happened, we scrapped our entire podcasting strategy of programming. And the reason we had scrapped it is because no longer were these plans that I had created for Q1 relevant in today's challenges and conversations. And so I challenged my team and myself to really listen to what our audience needed and to create content almost in real time so that we could show up with content that was super, super relevant. And as things were changing so quickly and needs were happening, we wanted to make sure that we could pivot and move. And so to do that, I was literally recording episodes Thursday or Friday for them to then be released that Monday. When I made this decision of there's no, what we have on our plate, right now to go out on Monday, that is not going to happen. There is nothing that I could possibly say that should dilute the conversation that needed to be had. And also needing that time to figure out, well, how do I want to show up? And then a whole week goes by. And this was this last week. So I'm recording this on Tuesday morning, June 9th. So last week, I took a lot of personal time off as I was navigating everything I shared with you at the beginning of this episode. I took a lot of naps and I had a lot of personal time and a lot of thinking and a lot of conversations and quite honestly, not a lot of time in my business. And so I paused. I paused so that I can slow down to go fast. I paused so that as I moved forward into whatever was next, that I really was giving myself that grace and that repair period from being exhausted to finishing out a project physically, emotionally exhausted with everything that I was personally feeling and that I was feeling honestly for others that I love around me. Instead of continuing to take action and potentially not showing up my best, I knew that I had to invest in myself and rest and to therefore show up the best that I can for you and for my team and for my family. So those are some of the things that I learned as I have been absolutely radio silent on social media and my emails and podcasting, is that while on the outside, it seemed like I was incredibly silent, internally and privately, there was a lot going on so that we can really learn from this situation and make real change and it not being a fleeting moment of what is popular or that it's a conversation that is in the headlines, but that far after that happens, how can I show up better? How can I show up better now that I've learned and that I see and that I have experienced so much pain through the stories that I have opened my heart to hearing. So thank you so much. And I really, really appreciate you listening to this episode and investing your time with me here today as I just have an open-hearted conversation from me to you. What I know more than ever is that 2020 has stretched me personally as a leader as we navigated through COVID-19, this situation that I'm sharing with you now, the financial ramifications of what has yet to shown fully because of COVID-19 that I do believe we will be experiencing. I truly, truly believe that all of this, while it feels incredibly hard for me and for you in these moments, it will make us stronger. It will allow us to fully step into parts of us that we would have never explored had we not been challenged. And I do believe that there is a lot of good that can come from this. And I have to hope to believe that, because that's literally what I'm built on. I'm built on seeing the good, and I'm built on living for the hope of what can be better. I truly, truly have sought to look for that, to affirm that, because that feels good. That feels good to know that real change will happen. That feels good to know that we will get through whatever financial crisis may or may not be happening. And it does feel good that as a country that we will be able to get through COVID-19 and heal. All right, so that's my straight talk for you today, not our normal episode. If you feel compelled, feel free to go back and listen to any of the past 150 plus episodes of Productivity Straight Talk. There are some great ones that you may have not heard, or some really good ones that you're like, I think I can listen to again. I would encourage you to do that until we're back to regular programming. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for always being here so that I can do what I am most passionate about, which is helping small business owners improve their lives through productivity and time management.